Hello everyone, thank you for being here. Today our group is going to share some insights about multilingualism. And then I will tell you about the title, Family Language Policy of Malaysian Chinese Catering Personnel in Kuala Lumpur. To begin with, let's take a brief look at the background of this topic, and I will explain why this context is important and why we choose this topic. Malaysian Chinese make up about 22.6% of the total population in Malaysia. And the language usage is highly diverse, according to the Department of Statistics in 2024. Malaysian Chinese are generally multilingual and often switch between Mandarin, English, Malay, and Chinese dialects. In recent years, the language used by Chinese families in Malaysia has gradually become more English-speaking, with a decrease in the use of dialects. And I divided the literature review into three aspects. First is the practical level. It's about multilingualism among Malaysian Chinese. Being multilingual, it is common for Malaysian Chinese to switch between languages depending on the situation. For instance, Mandarin and English are often used with children. Dialects are used in the social settings. Malay is mostly limited to names or place and people. Second, I will introduce the theoretical level and tell you the importance of family language policy, FLP. The concept of family language policy is critical. The family is where language is first acquired and where intergeneration transmission happens. It is the site of both natural communication and conscious language planning. Scholars like Pavlenko, Fishman, and King and Fogel emphasize that families play a central role in language maintenance and shift. Although some researches have been done on Malaysian Chinese FLP, there is a significant gap here. Constant focus is on identity rather than practices and policies in the family context. Similarly, Dean's analysis of code switching among Chinese in Sarawak emphasized pragmatic motivation for language use in business environments rather than the family environment. And about Liao's researches, she focused on Hakka in Sabah, including three aspects, but ignore occupational influence. And there is no study has focused on the impact of occupation, particularly the catering industry on family language use. The catering industry has several unique features: long working hours, physically demanding labor, frequent communication with multilingual customers. These factors are likely to influence language use at home, both consciously and unconsciously. Yet there is no existing study on the family language policy of catering personnel in Kuala Lumpur, and which is our highlight. And here comes the existing studies methodology. Almost used the mixed methodology. And their study collected rich and in-depth data, but the sample for the study was selected only from one place, cafe, which was small and not objective, as it was selected by the researchers themselves. Merrill and Rush's study used the randomized sampling method with a breakdown of ages to obtain representative data, but with a sample of only 26 participants, the reliability of the results is difficult to be guaranteed. So, our study aims to explore the FLP of Malaysian Chinese catering personnel in Kuala Lumpur, including language practices, language ideology, and language management. We will use Spelsky's framework. You can look at the picture here, and it shows the triangular relationship between three components. And we are seeking to deal with the three questions here. What are the patterns of intra-family language use among Malaysian Chinese catering industry personnel, particularly in terms of intellect and language choice? Second, what are the attitudes of family members toward the various languages used within the home environment, including Mandarin, English, Malay, and Chinese dialects? And the third one, how do parents manage language practices at home within the context of a multilingual family environment? And then I will introduce the theoretical framework. We decided to use the Spelsky's family language policy model. It includes three aspects: language practices, language ideology, language management. Here are the examples. Like, first one, what languages are actually used at home? And we can find the example here, code switching between Mandarin and English with children. And the second one, it refers what beliefs do families hold about different languages. For example, valuing English for education, but dialects for cultural identity. And for the third one, it refers to how do parents actively shape language use, for example, setting rules like Mandarin only at dinner. And here, our partner will introduce the following part and welcome the next one to introduce methodology.
Hello, Doctor. Hello, everyone. Regarding the methodology of our research, we will adopt a sequential mixed method approach to address the research questions. The sequential design consists of two phases. During the quantitative phase, a structured questionnaire will be administered to gather the data on language repertoire, language use, and language attitudes among Malaysian Chinese individuals engaged in the catering industry. During the qualitative phase, based on the results of the questionnaire, a small number of individuals will be invited for follow-up interviews to provide in-depth insights into their life experiences and the language management, which will influence their family language policy. To ensure the accurate intelligibility of the questionnaire and the semi-structured interviews, all of the materials we provide to the participants will be designed bilingually in both Mandarin Chinese and English. In terms of the participants, a proportive sample of the approximately 30 to 50 Chinese individuals working in the catering industry, for example, hawkers, restaurant owners, store workers in Kuala Lumpur will be recruited to complete the questionnaire. The inclusion criteria for the participants will include being of Chinese descent, currently employed in the catering industry, and having at least one family member with whom they live together. Subsequently, 4 to 6 participants from the questionnaire phase will be selected using maximum variation sampling to ensure diversity in gender, age, dialect background, and language attitudes. These individuals will be invited for follow-up interviews. And we will also include ethical considerations into our research, as you can see here. Regarding the data collection and the instruments, the instrument we used to include a bilingual questionnaire and the interview, as I mentioned before. These are adapted from 2 empirical studies. The questionnaire will be used to collect data on demographic background information, language proficiency in Cantonese, Hakka, Mandarin, Malay, and English, language use in different contexts, and the language attitudes. This is a 10-item Likert scale based on adapted items from 1 empirical studies, as I mentioned before. The questionnaire will be distributed physically or via 问卷箱 to respondents at selected food courts, coffee teams, and hawker centers. Semi-structured interviews will be conducted in Mandarin or English based on participants' preferences. Interview topics will include specific efforts to encourage or discourage the use of certain languages at home, as well as the influence of F&B working environment on the family language choice. Each interview will be approximately 30 to 45 minutes. These 3 pictures are some of the content of our designed questionnaire and the interview. That's all my part. Thank you.
Okay, then it's my part, data analysis. Since semi-structured interviews and a questionnaire survey are the 2 approaches used to get the data, both quantitative and qualitative methodologies will be employed in the analytic process. In terms of quantitative data, we will use descriptive statistics to analyze the respondent's personal background, language preferences, and language attitude data. We also use statistical software such as SPSS or Excel to calculate frequencies, percentages, and standard deviations. This can show the respondent's age, distribution of language preferences, and language attitude tendencies. We also compare the connection between the frequency of language use and contextual factors used by cross-tabulations. In terms of qualitative data, we will adopt theme analysis to respond to the open-ended questionnaires regarding language management. 4 to 6 participants will be audio-recorded during the process, and we will distribute them for content validation. And guided by Brown and Collar's 6 steps, we take our data analysis. We will first transcribe the interviews and perform preliminary coding to find keywords and recurrent themes. And the contextualization themes will then examine and condense from the purchase codes, such as family language rules or occupational influences. And finally, we will contrast with the questionnaire data to investigate any similarities or discrepancies. Okay, the next part is anticipated challenges and solutions. First of all, the respondents' language backgrounds are diverse, and many of them are used Cantonese, Hakka, Mandarin, and so on. This may result language boundaries that are not clear in actual use. So how to deal with it in order to ensure the accuracy of the data? We can refine the language categories and provide clear language options during the questionnaire design. And we can take the initiative to confirm the specific types of language mentioned by the respondents and their usage scenarios in order to improve the clarity and validity of the data comprehension. Secondly, the parts of language proficiency and language attitude in the questionnaire rely on respondent self-assessments, which may be influenced by individual subjective judgment or social expectations. In order to reduce this bias, we can validate with the interview data and compare them with the questionnaire results and the interview contents. This consistency between the two in terms of language attitudes and the actual language use can be explored, thus enhancing the credibility and interpretation of this data. Finally, because language use often involves more sensitive topics such as individual identity and cultural belonging, respondents may have some reservations in questionnaires or interviews. So, according to encourage authentic expression, we can make it clear before data collection that all information will be anonymized and kept strictly confidential. And at the same time, we will adopt neutral and open-minded questioning to create a safe and questioning communication environment so as to motivate the respondents to be more willing to share their real experiences and opinions. Okay, thank you. That is my part.
Okay, finally, let's take a look at our conclusion and reflection. In a word, our study attempts to apply the family language policy theory to the context of a specific occupational group in Malaysia, the Chinese catering industrial workers, highlighting that there's a connection between workplace and family language practices. In the process of designing this study, we gradually realized that language choice is not just a matter of family member preference or intergenerational inheritance, but is closely related to their career experience, language exposure environment, and even their views on what is a valuable language. Family language policy actually has many structural factors such as society's attitude towards English and dialects, which will indirectly affect the children's choice and the identification of language during their growth. In general, language is not only about communication, but also about belonging. This study reminds us to truly maintain language diversity. We must pay attention to the interaction between the workplace and the family. Finally, is our references. Okay, thank you for your listening.